Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking something so incredibly familiar and, well, twisting it into a terrifying reality. We're diving into 3 real-life accounts that turned a simple childhood game into an absolute nightmare. We're going to break down the atmosphere, that rising tension, and the creeping realization that those dark corners we willingly crawl into might already be occupied. Hide and seek is literally a universal experience, right? It's a game built entirely on that innocent thrill of the hunt. You know the exact feeling, that rush of hiding in the dark, your heart pounding against your ribs, trying so hard to keep your breathing completely silent while you just wait to be found by your friends. It's a manufactured fear. It's a safe kind of suspense that we willingly choose to jump into because we know ultimately the person looking for us is just a friend. But what actually happens when you aren't the only one hiding? This is where the whole psychology of the game completely shatters. I want you to imagine that primal fear, the exact moment the rules dissolve, those safe boundaries vanish, and the sickening realization sets in that the dynamic has completely flipped. You are no longer playing a game. You are actively being hunted by someone or something unknown. Let's get into case study 1, The Sanctuary, Intruder in the House. So our first story starts with a 15-year-old boy. It's a late September Friday night, just starting to get that autumn chill. His parents were out for the evening, so he's home alone with his best friend and neighbor, Chris. Just 2 kids looking to kill some boredom in a big, empty house. So naturally, they decide to play hide and seek. Now, their innocent intentions actually created the perfect trap. They set up some pretty strict rules. Turn off almost all the lights for atmosphere, stay completely indoors, and above all, remain absolutely quiet in the dark. But without even realizing it, they had inadvertently curated the perfect, isolated, pitch-black environment for an intruder to move around completely undetected. Okay, picture this. Our subject is hiding under the guest bed upstairs. It's pitch black. Suddenly, he hears footsteps slowly coming up the stairs. They move down the hall, enter the guest room, and stop right next to the bed. And as he's lying there, literally holding his breath, he hears slow, heavy breathing, just inches away. He totally assumes it's Chris just trying to wait him out. But after a long, agonizing silence, the footsteps shuffle away and the house goes completely dead quiet again. After waiting in the dark for what feels like forever, he finally crawls out, goes downstairs to the kitchen, and calls out that the game is over. And a voice calls back from the basement. It's Chris. And Chris says he's been down in the basement the entire time. Which means, who on earth was standing in the dark guest room, breathing heavily, just inches from the bed? The 2 boys, completely terrified now, huddle together on the living room couch. Then, suddenly, a loud bump from upstairs, followed by the distinct, slow creak of floorboards. Someone is definitely walking down the hall. Armed with literally nothing but a fireplace poker, they creep up the stairs. The house is completely silent except for their own breathing. They look at the guest room door, a door he knew for an absolute fact he had left open. It's now closed. And from behind that closed door comes a sound that still haunts him today. A slow, dragging noise. It sounded exactly like fabric sliding across the carpet. They push the door open. The room is empty, but the closet door is now half open. They sprint back downstairs, hiding in the dark, just clutching that fireplace poker. And then they hear faint footsteps on the first floor moving right toward the basement door. The door opens, the steps go down, and the boys use that split-second distraction to bolt out the back door and run across the street to call the cops. Now, the police found no one, but the boys knew exactly what they heard. They heard the front door open and close. Someone had absolutely been in the house with them, playing their own twisted version of the game. Moving on to case study 2, The Unknown, Shadows in the Woods. The subject of this next account is just 14 years old. It's a hot, humid August night. He and 4 of his friends are playing hide and seek in a neighborhood that backs right up against this dense stretch of woods. And at night, those trees literally swallow up all the ambient light. It's the kind of dark where everything looks exactly the same. Honestly, an incredibly dangerous place to hide. When you hide in the woods, you generally expect to hear the frantic, light footsteps of your friends crunching through the leaves, right? But as he's hiding behind a fallen log, he hears something entirely different. Slow, heavy, adult footsteps, just walking through the brush. Steps that stop just feet away from him. He immediately assumes it's his friend Jason, but when the round finally ends, he finds out Jason was nowhere near that part of the woods. The dread really deepens in the final round. He decides to hide near the edge of the woods, crouching super low in the tall grass, kind of relying on the faint glow of neighborhood porch lights for some comfort. And in the dead silence, he hears something that absolutely freezes the blood in his veins. A whisper. A low, soft human whisper right next to him in the tall grass. It was way too soft to make out the actual words, but undeniably human. And then, those heavy footsteps walk right past him, just disappearing deeper into the trees. When the game ends, he tells his friends about the whisper, and honestly, they kind of brush it off. But then, his friend Matt drops a terrifying confirmation. Matt says that while he was hiding, he saw a tall man standing in the woods. The man wasn't walking, wasn't playing, he just stood there, completely motionless in the dark, watching them. They never actually found out who it was. Was it a drifter, a neighbor, someone living deep in those trees? All they knew for sure is that they had blindly hidden in the dark right next to a silent observer. Now for our final story, Case Study 3, The Predator, the stranger named Keith. Picture a rural property in Pennsylvania, just vast acreage on a summer afternoon. Our 14-year-old subject and his friends are playing basketball when an older 16-year-old kid they have literally never seen before just walks right out of the woods. He introduces himself as Keith. He acts incredibly casual, like he knows the area perfectly. He suggests they switch games and play manhunt, which is basically a much more intense version of hide and seek, and Keith immediately volunteers, straight up insisting on being the seeker. The escalation here is chillingly methodical. In the afternoon, Keith initiates the game, forcing the kids to scatter and hide all over the property. By sunset, he vanishes completely, without a single word. But that evening, a dirty, weathered piece of rope appears directly outside the bedroom window, a rope that was definitely not there earlier. Then, at 11 p.m., while everyone else is asleep, the subject hears impossibly quiet footsteps creeping through the house, stopping right outside his locked bedroom door. He wakes his dad, who grabs a shotgun and searches the whole house, but finds absolutely nothing. Fast forward to 2 a.m., the subject is wide awake in bed. Suddenly, he hears a slow, agonizing scratching sound coming from the glass of his bedroom window. It literally sounds like a fingernail dragging against the pane. He slowly reaches out and cracks the window blind just a fraction of an inch, and right there, standing inches away in the pitch black, is the dark figure of a person. He screams for his dad, who rushes out and fires 2 shotgun rounds into the night sky, chasing the figure away. That daytime game of hide and seek? It was merely a cover, just a way for Keith to scout the property for a midnight hunt. This brings us to You Are Never Alone, the lingering trauma of the hunt. You see, these stories target our absolutely most primal human fears. There's the violation of the sanctuary, learning that your locked house and your own bedroom offer absolutely no true protection. Then, the isolation of the dark woods, that scary realization that stepping into nature means stepping into an environment where someone else has the absolute upper hand. And finally, the methodical deception of a predator who walks right up to you in broad daylight and just invites themselves into the game. This is exactly why these events leave the victims completely traumatized for years. So, the next time you find yourself alone in an empty house, or maybe standing at the edge of a dark tree line, just listening to the absolute silence, ask yourself, when you hide in the dark, do you ever really know who is hiding with you?